people, but just many couples and couple individuals that will be blessing us, equipping us for relationships. Amen? Amen. Who does not want to be in a relationship? Or a relationship with God? Either or. You could be. So we have 4 amazing people that I'm just going to invite to the stage. If you guys can just come, and then we will introduce you guys to them. But can you guys please come to the stage, and we will welcome you. Can we give them a round of applause as they come? Yeah, just pick. Okay, Faith, I think we're supposed to sit there, but you know what? You could just, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so as they figure out their sitting, they're here really honestly to equip you guys both for singleness and for marriage and dating. And I think there's a need for that in the church, amen? Especially in our generation, in our culture, in our world where it feels like the barriers are ever increasing in getting married or dating or all that stuff. I just feel like God will bless us through them. They're going to equip us and prepare us the best they can by the power of the Holy Spirit for dating, marriage. So that's why they're here. So just to break the ice, can everyone here tell me how they first met their couple? And for those that are not in a relationship, how you met the Lord. I'm just kidding. Okay. You know what? I'm just going to give you guys this mic here. So, Estelle, you can start.
All right. Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing? All right? Lots of habishes. Always good. I came to the Lord as a young boy. My grandfather died around 5, so my grandmother lived with us. She was an evangelical Christian, but from a Greek Orthodox country, Cyprus. So we were kind of like, we're very small and as a people, but then to be evangelical in that tiny Orthodox country makes you marginalized as well. So, prayer and reading the Bible was very serious for my grandmother, and she slept in the same room as me, and she would pray over me, and those prayers kind of added up. So when I was 10, I was very secure in my faith, in my evangelical and my Orthodox faith as well, and I believed in Jesus Christ as if it was, a fact, it wasn't a question. I felt the presence of the Lord in my room, in just my life all the time. So by 10, I'd given my life, and it was an easy decision. Following that, 20 years later, pretty much, I met my wife in not this building, but this church. I came to do a project, and I Googled evangelical churches on Google, and this thing says Ethiopian Evangelical Church. I went, Ethiopian Evangelical Church? What kind of Martians are these? It's such a weird niche thing to hear. So I thought, I've got to check them out. And I went down, I opened the door, and my wife was at the end of the aisle, basically. And, how can I resist? But we didn't date straight away or anything like that. God gave us time to mature in our walks, and over a year later, a friend of ours, I don't know if Johnny Adamu, remember Johnny Boy? Gotta give him a shout out. He connected us, and we started talking, and everything was appropriate, and it led to a marriage. So that's it, basically.
Ditto.
Just keep it, you can hold it.
My name is Courtney, and my husband Mark, and we met at a young adult gathering called Resurgence. That was kind of where we first laid eyes on each other, and then from then on, that was in November, and then we were just kind of suddenly in each other's lives a lot. He was helping with a project that we were doing for this event. We ended up in at this same small group or something. We saw each other every day randomly for a week, and then just we're oh, we kind of like each other. Got to know each other that summer. Mark was super intentional. He was he wanted to make sure that he knew I was he was interested in me, but interested in getting to know where this was going. Not let's date or anything serious, but I want to get to know you. And then the end of summer started dating.
Ditto.
I'm Christina. I'm representing Team Single. Anyone else? Anyone else? And which is really funny is when Abel asked me to come speak, he said, "You're gonna have a partner. We're gonna find a guy for you to come speak with." And just, fitting enough, I'm here alone. So single again.
We actually met at church, but I guess where we first met was the first day he came into the church and gave his heart to the Lord. But then when we actually started hanging out together was at a Full Gospel Businessman's Banquet. Christmas banquet. And we ended up going as a youth group, but the youth didn't show up at the meeting place, so we just kind of went together with his sister and my brother, and then that was the beginning. We sat together at the banquet, and we just kept sitting together and talking. And then 6 months later, we were married.
Wow.
Ditto plus one. I came to the church that her family attended. She was in the church as a young person. That's when I got saved from a pretty rough background. And the morning I came into the church, long hair, scruffy looking. Now that's normal. Back then it wasn't so much. And came in and went to the front, knocked a few chairs around, whatever, and stood there looking kind of rough. And God was actually doing a real big work in my life, but she was sitting watching. She didn't know me at all then. And later she told me, I thought, I don't think he's going to make it. So she prayed.
Wow. Okay, guys. So just for the audience, you guys can go to, or you can scan the QR code or go to that website and enter that code. And then you guys could actually anonymously ask your questions so that, and then we will get those questions and no one will have to know. And then we'll ask you guys those questions. But in the meantime, as you guys have time to just do that, I'm going to ask maybe just a question that I got from them. And I might just go for it, just going to go into it. Let's, okay, the first question someone asked is, if I've dealt with trauma from the past in my singleness, why should I then bring it up in my marriage? So if I've dealt with trauma in the past in my singleness, why should I then bring it up in my marriage? Does that make sense to you guys or no? It does? Okay, maybe how do you deal with trauma in your singleness, and especially as transitions to marriage? Maybe that's a better way of asking you.
I would say if you've dealt with trauma when you're single, that you're going to bring stuff into your marriage. Like it's going to affect your marriage. So that's why I would say you should talk about it to your partner.
Yeah, I just agree with that, but you have to be careful how you do it and with wisdom and maybe counsel together with mature believer, but it's good to know each other fully. The Bible says that two become one. They were naked and unashamed, and it's not just physically naked. They're our whole lives joined together, our body, soul, and spirit, and to be known to each other. And as you start out in marriage without any hidden issues, you're going to be better. And throughout the years, you want to be open and transparent with each other. And you really get to know each other fully in a healthy marriage. So it's good to be open before stepping into marriage. I think maybe that's what that's getting at.
I think I would add too that the devil always wants to keep sins hidden, because once you bring light to it, then like God can come and bring healing and bring restoration. So when you keep a sin hidden, then it's just different in your heart. But when you like bring light to it and you share it with your partner, or like just like shine Jesus' light on it, then it changes it, and Jesus can come and transform that trauma and like change it.
Yeah, I think the lie is that once you've dealt with your trauma, that it's like done with. I think as you go through marriage, especially kids and you family of origin stuff, like that's the biggest thing when you get married, is just like not just culturally like your ethnic background, but like the way she was raised was so different than the way I was raised, right? Like the nuances, the way we celebrate Christmas, the order of Thanksgiving dinner, like those pieces, those are all cultural differences. And as you have kids and as you get married, you actually realize, wow, this is something that I never realized was trauma. Or trauma seems like an intense word, but like things come up that you're like, I act this way or react this way because of this. Like my dad was this way, and like stuff gets uncovered. And so to think that, hey, I've dealt with stuff, I go into marriage like I have no more issues or whatever is like just a lie, right? And I think it's important to recognize that stuff is going to keep getting uncovered, especially, you get married, have kids, and then you're like, wow, I did not realize how much that affected me, and actually my dad or my mom does that, and then you kind of work through that.
I think trauma is like a new word to me. It didn't exist when I was around. It's like the internet. It just appeared one day and everyone had trauma. So, back in the 80s, things happened to you and that was it. The 70s, you're like, yeah, that's why I do that, because Dad did that, That was it. He didn't call it trauma. He just, that was a reason. That was the reason. But let's call it trauma just because your generation's here. But marriage will cause your trauma to bleed out. Even if you've dealt with it, it will cause you. You're going to have kids. You're going to have lack of sleep. You're going to get fat. You're going to not look like what you look like in the mirror because you're just eating baby food when they're not eating it. And then all these stresses cause you to, whatever was trauma, to come out because you're uncomfortable. Generally, I'm uncomfortable. I can't even fit in my trousers anymore. I'm always uncomfortable. So it's like, I have two columns. One is, trauma. And the other one is...
Hey, Stel, can you hold it up?
Oh, sorry, mate. Yeah.
Don't hold the bottom. Just hold it up.
All right, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you got like two columns. One is trauma or your reasons why you are the way you are. And the other one is truth, right? So, you might have dealt with your issue before, but marriage will make it come out again anyway. And unless there's a miraculous healing or a miraculous turnaround, you're still going to be suffering it. It's just with you sometimes. It depends what it is. But as long as you have this pillar of truth that you are chained to, if you chain yourself to that, don't chain yourself to your trauma. So like Sine knows me very well, obviously, and she knows that things come out of me sometimes. It could be aggression or whatever it is. But she knows he's chained to truth as well. So it'll come out the other end. Sometimes you just have to wait things through, and that's part of marriage. You just have to tolerate the difficult person for a while. But as long as they've been chained to truth, so if that's been established, as long as you can say, is Jesus this? Is this what he said? Can you agree on that? And then you say, yes, that is true. Okay, but that's different to what you're saying, right? I go, yes, but I'm going to do it my way now, and eventually Jesus will have his way at the end. As long as Jesus wins at the end and you give him that space. I think that's the practical way of doing it sometimes. There's no magic in it. Sometimes you just have to go through it, I guess.
Okay, thank you guys for your questions. The questions keep rolling in. By the way, this is anonymous, so we do not even know who's asking these questions. Just FYI. So if you are embarrassed about a question, just know we don't know who you are. So the one question that we have here is, can you talk about purity and boundaries before marriage?
Have them.
I think that's probably one of the most important issues to deal with. And in a world that's very impure and confused about the whole concept of sexual purity, that's a very hard issue to deal with as a young Christian in a world that's just promoting everything. So I know there's going to be every kind of problem in everybody's walk. And so dealing with it is important, facing it, understanding it. And the simple fact is that if you can remain pure in the sense of not engaging in sexual activity in all of its different forms that are out there, including pornography and all of the things related to that, you will keep yourself in a better place for having a better, healthier marriage. And because every one of those interactions or activities prior to marriage will affect your relationship in marriage. And if we had time, we will another time in the courses actually be talking about it more deeply. But marriage is such a blessed and beautiful thing, and the enemy is trying to rob you of that all the time. And if he can take more of that away from you before you even get married, those encounters, those experiences will influence your relationship with your partner in a negative way and a damaging way, and it'll be something you have to work hard to overcome, and you can overcome, but it just robs you of some of the treasure and the intimacy. And what, the Bible says in Proverbs and Song of Solomon, both, is that marriage should be like a garden that's sealed. It has no intrusions into it. And it's talking about physical, sexual connection in marriage that is so beautiful and so rich and such a treasure throughout your whole life if you walk with God carefully. And anything that breaks that kind of marriage as a garden sealed, no intrusions, anything that breaks into it, like before marriage or after marriage, activities that relate to sexual encounters of all different types, rob you of that and damage it, and so it takes away from what you could have. So it's worth working hard, praying hard, walking with God, walking close to God, and overcoming those temptations and the pressures that are around, and the peer pressure and the kind of sense that if you don't engage in this, you won't be popular, or you'll be rejected, or it's worth fighting for that purity. And we know there's forgiveness, and we know there's cleansing by the blood of Christ when we fail, and so it's not like that's the end of your life, but it just robs you. And so it's well worth fighting for that, like especially in this ugly world we're living in right now.
Amen. Wow, it's good. Okay, I'm going to ask a question for you, which is,
I'm
like,
ready.
how does someone in their singleness use that effectively for the glory of God? How do you use your singleness well?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the nice things about being single is that you have more free time and less responsibility. And so there's 4 things that I think that are positives to singleness, and that's it. Just kidding. But you have the opportunity to not be selfish, but put your own needs kind of above anyone else, because there's no one else that you need to kind of elevate above your own. So you can do things like work on yourself. So you can work on your relationship with the Lord, which is the most important, because if you're not complete in Him, then no one that you meet is going to complete you. And that's also like physical well-being as well. So like working on your physical health, or if you are dealing with trauma, making sure that you're going to the right people. Maybe that's actual counseling, just to make yourself as whole as you can be. Like, you don't have to be perfect to enter into marriage, but if you have a solid foundation yourself, then that's probably a good place to start. And then you just have so much opportunity to serve in your church. And actually, we talked about this morning at North Point, and how just serving the Lord can just do so many benefits, not only to your community or your church, but internally as well, including meeting new relations, whether that's friends or possibly other relationships. And then it's a good opportunity to practice thinking about others. Because obviously I've never been married, but when you're in marriage, you're supposed to think of the other person first, right? That's what I hear. And so we have this opportunity to focus on others, put their needs above our own, pray for other people, and not only will that just benefit, again, the global church, our community, but it just takes some of that pressure off of your own desires when you're focusing on others, and not in a, oh, they're worse off than me kind of situation, but just in a change of heart posture. So that's what I got for you.
Okay. So we have one question here. Keep going. I think up. This one got 3 likes. So what is your take on young Christians using apps like Tinder or Bumble to find partners, to find partners in today's world? What's your thoughts on dating apps?
Stell has strong opinions about that, but I'll give you mine first. I I think it's a different world we live in, and often when I talk with Stell about it, because he has a negative viewpoint on it slightly, we have the benefit of being older, where people actually met face to face, where men were not shy to, approach and pursue. I think it's a different world you guys are all in, so I really sympathize. I've seen it work. One of my best friends, met her now husband online, and they have a very Christ-centered marriage relationship. So I've seen it work, but I think it's very, even when you think about it psychologically, the aspect of, what's around the corner, the fear of missing out, it's very addictive, very misleading, so it has to be used with caution. It has to be used prayerfully. There's nothing in the Bible about it, so it's really your own discretion, and whether or not it's something that you can handle is what you need to investigate for yourself. But it can work, but it's very hard for it to work, I think. Do you want to say?
I think I should take it. I don't know, a broken clock is right twice a day, isn't it? And that's what Tinder and all that is. And you know it. You know it. Because if you're a man who's busy doing your job, if you're busy in your work, if you're Adam in the garden, God will send you Eve. And no one's going to do nothing about it, not the devil, no one. If you're really busy doing what you're supposed to be doing as a man, then God's going to send you your Eve. So I would say to the brothers, I don't have any right to talk to the girls, but if you're working at Starbucks and you've got no aspirations to do something and you're just, waiting on tables, all right, fine, if that's what you want to do the rest of your life. But if you want to be a father, if you want your son to be a killer in life, and he sees his dad as a waiter serving tables, and there's nothing wrong in serving tables, but you're not really busy, are you? You're busy, you're not slogging something. So, Adam was chopping down trees, making the jungle into a garden. Where's your axe? What are you sweating on? Because if you're not sweating somewhere, then you're not really doing something right. You need to be challenged. You need to be involved. Doesn't mean you have to be stressed. You can love what you do, but you should be sweating doing it. So I think that's the problem. I think really the problem is with the guys, not really with the girls so much. I think if the guys get it right, the girls will follow. I think that's just the order. So guys, man up. Just get yourself a proper job, study, and this Tinder business, I don't know, this world of... I know I could live 100 lives and never need the internet to find a wife. There's so many great girls out there. They're beautiful everywhere. I don't understand why men need the internet. Why do you need buttons to find a wife? What? Just look at someone that you like, say hello, that's it. And don't be so afraid, Canadian boys. I don't know. We've got a nice little British boy over here. We were talking about it the other day. He's my cousin Mario. And Canadian guys, they don't really have game. And I don't mean it like, I don't mean it like that, like you want to be a sex pest or anything. But, in the olden days, you were a gentleman. You made your thing clear. Hey, I'm John. I work here. This is what my vision is. And there's a great book by Dr. Miles Monroe. And I read this book. It changed my heart on this issue. Find your vision for your life. Work on yourself. Work on yourself. And everything will come, let alone your wife, but what you're supposed to be doing for the Lord. It's hard to find your purpose in this world with all the things today that are taking, your busyness should be in your work, not in your phone and internet. You shouldn't be busy on that. I found myself single, unemployed, broke, and the less responsibility I had, the worse my life was. I heard you say you were single and you didn't have the responsibilities, and it was nice. For me personally, I hate that. I love responsibilities. I love being busy. I love having bills to pay. I love hustling. And I think those people are the people that are ready for marriage, because marriage is a hustle. So if you're not ready to hustle and bustle and sweat and cry and argue and all that, don't get married. Stay single. It's pretty rough. But if you're ready for it, then yeah. But it's got nothing to do with the internet or Tinder. I mean, look around you. Half these people are single. What, you need Tinder? There they are. Let's go.
Can I add something? I think, obviously, in our day and age too, I think dating apps can be a good tool, but you, like all things in relationships, need to have boundaries and be confident in what your values are. So I've met some incredible couples who have met online, and they are just on fire for the Lord, and they are serving in our church, and Hinge just happened to be the medium in which they met. I also think God can use anything, right? But I think you just need to check what your intentions are. So I know I'm not on dating apps, but I have been on dating apps, and in unhealthy periods of my life, I was using it for validation, right? The high of a match. Oh, I guess I am pretty, that kind of thing, which isn't healthy. But the positive of it is the people on there hopefully are actually intentional, right? So a lot of people, and the other side too is if you want a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you can go on a dating app and you can find one, but you need to be careful on what your values are, what your intentions are. But yeah, I'm not fully against them. I wouldn't write them off.
So I'm just gonna ask a question to you guys. So directly, there's recently statistically in Canada, the amount of people getting married is later and later and later. The amount of people getting kids is much less and less and less. And I thought that was just statistics in the world, but it's actually happening in the church as well. And so my question to you guys, what's happening? Why is there a cultural shift in our culture, in our churches, where those of us who do want to get married are getting married much, much later? And why do you think that is?
Delayed adolescence.
Elaborate.
My dad is a youth ministry guy, so I hear lots about adolescent development. But just culturally, adolescent development has changed. So I like to use the example of people used to move out at 18. Most people are staying at home until they're 27, 28. Whereas, yeah, like you said, people used to get married at 23. I think the Canadian average for women is 32. And the people used to have kids, I think my mom was well, I had you at 26, and that was kind of late. But now I think first pregnancy in Canada is either 32 or 34. So it's just a cultural shift.
That's good. Any other comments?
I'm not sure what I want to say. I would almost like to ask what you're thinking, because, like she said about the statistics, I don't understand it myself. I think, why are you waiting so long? Why do you not feel ready? Why are you afraid, or whatever it is to get married, is my question. We got married when we were 22, and we've been married for almost 49 years. And I know that you don't want to get married before you're ready, but I'm just wondering what young people are feeling these days.
Some people have said self-doubt. I don't know, maybe you want to maybe speak into that. I don't know what doubt, maybe fear. What do you think? How do people overcome those things?
Well, it's always Jesus. I think when you give your life to the Lord and you genuinely follow Him, then you can overcome these doubts and these fears and the anxiety and all of those things. And I know that sounds like a simplistic answer, but it's actually true.
Yeah, I would just agree with her. We won't, but I'd like to hear why, for us 50 years ago, it would have, by 22 you're kind of slow already. And now, of course, it's changed. The world has changed, the culture's changed. So you have to react to that and deal with it. But it is a curiosity to me, and I don't have an answer for sure.
Well, I think it's a combo of things. You've brought this up. I think a lot of 21-year-olds are not mature enough to be married. Just delayed adolescence. They're just like not in a place to be married. A lot of guys aren't ready financially. They're working hard enough, like they just, or they don't feel like they are. There's a lot of pressure to like be ready. And I meet a lot of people that are like, I need to graduate, have this job. And it's like, you'll figure it out as you go. Like, do it with your partner, with Jesus. I think it's a lie that you'll never be ready. When you wait till I have X amount of money or X job, you'll never be ready. What I observed from that, Pastor Sammy, is like selfishness, quite honestly. I think there's FOMO out there, fear of missing out, and people, your 20s is to actually like live life, and then your 30s, you kind of like, you bog down and you tie yourself down, right, to get married and have kids, and then, you know, maybe later in life you kind of reap the rewards of having invested into a career or something. And that's such a backwards mindset, to think that like, I got married at 21, you know, like I'm in the thick of parenthood right now, and if I'm thinking that I'm wasting my 20s, like my prime years where I could be doing other things, like that's such a lie is what that is. And so I meet people and they're like, I don't want to get married till I'm 30 because I have all the stuff I want to do. I want to travel, I want to explore the world, I want to party, I want to live my life. And their view is that when I get married, that I get tied down and I can no longer live my life the way I want to live. And so that's the view, I think. And I meet godly Christian people who are like, you know, I don't want to have kids or get married until I'm like done, until I've done my bucket list or done what I want to do. And so I think that contributes to also, delayed adolescence, but also like 21-year-olds are not the same as 21-year-olds 50 years ago. 21-year-olds 50 years ago built houses, right? Now they like, I don't know, can't pay their phone bill, you know? It's like, I don't know.
Times have changed. For
Playing
sure.
Fortnite, playing Fortnite.
I couldn't agree more with you. And did you get married at 21, you said? Yeah. That's amazing. That's the dream come true, really. If I could do it all over again, that's what I wanted, to get married at 21. There's that kind of idea that 20s is for fun, 30s for the lessons, and 40s is to pay the bills. Is that right? Sex and the City or something like that? I watched an episode of it. And but it's not true. Your teens are for your childhood is for your fun. But I mean, you've got all the tools to do everything in your 20s. That's why the Muslims are doing it in the Middle East. They're getting married super early, and they're working, and they're having 4 or 5 kids, and they love their kids. So, you know, we've missed this. This wave has just gone right over us. And for some reason, I think what it is that we're spoiled. And it will never happen in the West again where people get married early, because we have all the apps and we're spoiled for choice. My dad's an ice cream van, right? He's an ice cream man, he's got an ice cream van. And he used to just have one pump where that vanilla 99 came out, and no one had a choice. It was like, can I have an ice cream? There you go, £1. Now if you come, there's Magnums, there's Cornettos, there's Knickerbocker Glories, and there's 1,000 ice creams there, and then you just get a snot-nosed kid just... And you're like, come on, kid, I've got a queue. Come on, move on with life, you know. And he's never going to make a decision because there's all these colors and flavors, right? So it makes it impossible. And guess who has the best ice cream? The kid who goes, yeah, just the normal old one, please, because that's the freshest one, that's the quickest one, and it does the job. Whoever you're going to marry, as long as they're, you know, related to Jesus, they're going to do the job, right? The job's going to get done. It just depends how fast you want to start that life. It doesn't matter who you marry. It just really, if they're attached to Jesus and you're evenly yoked, everything else is going to go wrinkly, gray, and crooked anyway. We all look the same at 50, right? No one goes, oh, isn't that 68-year-old guy, that, you know, what a dish. No, we're pretty prunes. Right? No disrespect to anyone, right? But including myself, look at me. I was like bold at 20. It was already going that way. So I was done early, you know. And everyone was like, oh, you better hurry up now. You're bold. It's over before it's began. But you're just too picky. And I'm picky too. I was like, oh, one earlobe is a bit bigger than the other. And I'm picky too, you know. But if you meet someone, don't fob them off because you're online and you're talking to someone else and they might be a bit better. Yeah, but I've seen so many people meet great people and they regret not marrying the person who is now gone off the shelf because you couldn't make a decision. And it's mostly guys. Usually if the guy is in his lane, doing his thing, the girl will smell it and go, this is a great guy. times are hard, let's go. And I've been to 40 countries. The best trip I ever had was having my babies. It's the best trip in the world. It never ends. It's a roller coaster. But, you know, I heard of some people, I don't know them. They got married at 16, 17, they got together. By 18, they had their first kid. They had 3-4 kids in a row. By 37, 38, all their kids were gone to college. And they were in their 30s. They were already kind of retired from children. And then they went traveling and did all their thing, you know. So you can do it that way around, I wouldn't suggest it, but that can happen too. But I think your choices are spoiling you. And if that can be homed in, and you meet someone good, make a decision, go with it, and love them, fall in love with them, argue with them, fight with them, fall in love with them all over again. That's marriage. It's going to happen if it's Megan Fox or Rosie O'Donnell. It's going to happen either way. So, yeah.
Like, I'll make a point just to that. Is that me? I'll be a grandfather when I'm 40, you know? Like, not grandfather. I could be in my mid-40s, yeah. But my kids will all be teenagers when I'm 40. So to think of, I think it's an issue of, in sports, we're conditioned to think that the prime age, which in sports, it's like, 20 to 30. That's your prime. When you're 30, you're kind of getting old. And we think in life it's the same way, that 25 is your prime. When I'm like, I meet people who are like in their 60s, and they would, like, I literally, the president of Vanguard College, Mark McKnight, he literally told me that he's 63, and he said, I feel like I'm in the prime of my life. He just entered this new role as a president, and his, it's like, and for us to think, man, at 63, if I have 40 more years of good ministry and life left, again, that leads to like thinking in my 20s, I want to capitalize on my 20s, but to go, man, I'll be 40 and my kids will be old. That's like 40's still super young to then like, who knows what adventure lies ahead, And so that was me. That's a really good point to make as well.
If I could add one more thing, listening to this has been encouraging, helping me understand it. But one thing I would say to you, if you think marriage is kind of locking you into something dull and bad, and being single is keeping you free and happy, you got it really wrong. Like, unless you get into a bad marriage, which you don't want to get into. But if you get into a good, healthy marriage, life begins. The joy, the fun, the sharing together, the companionship, the ministry, the fun, every part of it. Like, and for 50 years, that's true. And I can tell you, it's still true. 50 years later. And it was fun the first year, it's fun the second year, it's life, it's sharing, it's, so if you think, well, that's boring and this is exciting, you're missing the mark altogether.
Also, I would say, like, what do you want to do with your life? Like, okay, so you want to stay single till you're 35. Like, why? Like, what's so exciting about the life you're living now? I don't know. Like, that's my question.
And I'll just add one more thing. I agree. I was going to say it's not all doom and gloom once you're married. I wish we met earlier so we could travel together and do all those fun things. The reason I think the apps is definitely one of the determining factors for why people are getting married later and later. Too many options, like Sel was saying, and it cripples a lot of people from making a decision. But I want to say, I think getting married younger protects you from a lot of sin. It really, it's a way that, like, it's a tool that God has given us to live a holy life. And so please don't take it for granted. And the second thing I wanted to say quickly, I know I don't want to spend too much time, is take yourself seriously. I don't know how old you all are here, but if you're 15, 16, don't think to yourself, oh, I'm still young, I have time. Oh, well, I'll think about that when I'm in my mid-20s. Take yourself seriously, work on yourself, develop your personality, develop your character, pray hard, and so you get to that mature state earlier. Because I think a lot of people are not putting the work in, and I don't think if you're not putting the work in, you shouldn't get married at 21 or 31, because you want to have a successful marriage. So take yourself seriously and put in the work so that when God gives you what he's prepared for you, you're ready to take it and just run with it.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to sneak this in here, a question for Mark and Courtney. So Mark and Courtney actually have quite a big age gap. Could you guys just talk about that for a little bit? Because I think some women in the room are like, they see like a younger guy who's like mature, but they're like, oh, but that feels so weird, and like, was that ever a thing for you guys? And maybe just share how far apart you guys are?
Guess who's older? She's 32 and I'm 27, and I was 19, she was 24. So it's 4.5 years. There's a half year where it's like a 5-year gap. What was the question?
Was there ever like weirdness with
Yeah.
the age gap, or was it just like, was there ever
Yeah.
weirdness?
Yeah, there was. I think. No, it was in my head though. I would ask friends like, "Is this weird? Is this weird? Is this weird?" And I tried to convince myself that it wasn't, and it wasn't. It just like I don't know why. Maybe you can speak to this. I think it was maybe, if anything, it was weirder for her. But yeah, you speak to it. I'll answer after you.
I think so. When we first started dating, then Mark met a bunch of couples that had a similar age gap, and he was like, "Oh, okay. Once you are like past 25, it's like it's not really applicable. So that's like if we intend on getting married, that's going to be the majority of our relationship. So like kind of once you're into it, then it's like it's fine. We don't think about it at all. But when we first started dating, it was definitely like, okay, he's a lot younger. Like we grew up in like doing different things. Like we got cell phones at completely different times, like vastly different. But then as you get older, you grow together, then it wasn't a big deal. And like he also was a very mature 19-year-old. He was not an immature 19-year-old, which would make a difference because I dated other people that were my age and they were like much more immature and it showed. And so like boys, step up. You got this.
Yeah, it was weird for like 5 minutes, and then it's like we hadn't even thought about it until you brought up this question, right? Like, and that's something to consider. It's just timing. Like if we had met at any other time of life, we probably wouldn't have got together, right? Like if she was 19, obviously I would have not. But like, you know what I mean? Even if it was like 2 years later, like the timing just wasn't right. I heard someone say whose age gap, like literally, I remember when I was really processing this, I met literally like 3 couples in 1 week that had the exact age gap, 4.5 years, the woman being older. And one guy said, women live longer statistically, and so technically it's actually the perfect thing because you guys will make it to the same age, or make it to the same time, which I was like,
good.
all right.
That's good. Okay, so we have a question here about just dating or marrying someone of different race than you, and how do you navigate that with parents? That's for our cult. Yeah, there's a good one. There's a good one. So I think round about you guys, because you guys had it probably a bit more challenging than, but for Stell and what you guys did too.
Okay, I'll say quickly. Yeah, definitely. I think any couple will come into the relationship with a lot of differences, even if they're the same race, the same ethnicity. But I do think coming from different ethnic backgrounds compounds it, for sure. Especially in my case, Ethiopian, born and raised, moved to Canada. He's Greek English, so from England, but Greek background. So we have very different temperaments, very different ways of expressing ourselves, very different ways of even thinking about the world. So I think it's important to, if that is something that you're pursuing, don't be naive about it. Don't think, oh, love will conquer all. I think be ready for the conflicts that will arise, even in raising children and how you want to discipline them and things like that. It will come up, so be ready, have your expectations adjusted so that you're not easily disappointed and deflated. When it comes to the parents, I think, we all have Christian parents, I'm assuming, maybe not, but if you do, really if they are Christian, then they should know that the most important thing is the partner you choose follows Christ. And so if they're unhappy, pray for them. And they should come around, really, if they are seeking from the Word. So I don't know that, my dad's approval was very important to me, but I had the confidence that it would be okay because I knew he was a Christian. So I don't know. I didn't deal with it, so I can't really give advice, but just be ready that it's a little bit harder than normal.
Sorry, I just had to speak on this one because obviously we've been married for 7.5 years, and but Amber's Greek, so I'm going to say something. It's not so spiritual, but a bit more practical. Greece and Ethiopia have had like the best relationship for 4,000 years, as far as we know. They've never been to a war or anything like that. I think if you meet a Christian, because I would never advise anyone who's Christian date anyone outside of that, unless you want a lot of problems, a lot of stress, maybe some violence. I would, yeah. So if you fell in love with someone and your country is at war with that country, that's going to come up. And how are you going to feel when they say, "Oh yeah, I believed we should have invaded you. You needed that. You needed us," you know? And that might be a real sore spot. So, you know, she may look 10 out of 10, act 10 out of 10, but that is going to reduce her to a 1 very quickly when she says something that hurts your ancestry. You know, we're all attached to our ancestry in a big way. And so, you know, it depends how sensitive they are to those subjects. I'm Greek. If I met a Turkish girl who was perfect, because we've been at war for thousands of years, right, or hundreds of years, and they were Christian, and they were like, you know what, we regret our involvement like this in this war. You know, how about you? And I'd be like, well, as you should, right? So they might be, oh, I don't like this guy, and that's fair enough. So you have to be a bit practical, because these will come up. Your parents are going to meet up, and it was very important to me that when I met my wife, that I got her father's approval, to the point where I moved country back to England just to win it, because he wanted a guy who was serious about his daughter. And I think my best man said to me, you know, look, your wife isn't yours to take, it's his to give away. So men, you gotta like understand that you're not meeting a girl and taking her. You know, the Viking era is over. They got defeated. They got defeated by a bunch of nerds as well. So, you know, that's over. You gotta earn the affection of your father-in-law if he's going to be around. And if he's not around, or if he's a bit of a jerk even, you still should try to earn, because that's a father. And you've got to honor your parents as much as you can. I'm a hypocrite, to be honest with you. There's times that I don't do that. But I know the rules, right? So be practical. Ask yourself those questions. Another practical thing, I wanted to marry someone whose parents were together. My parents were divorced. I couldn't do another whole he said, she said divorce thing. I needed some stability. I was very practical about that. When I heard Sinead's parents were together, I was like, oh, that's great, really? In this day and age, what's wrong with them? You know, everyone else is divorced. But then I met them, and they were just the best people I've ever met. The best. And so when I married Sinead, I married her parents, her sister, her amazing brother, and I love them all to death. It's a package deal. You know, you might meet this great person, and on the other side, there's it's a package deal. You're going to have to live with those guys, live with their opinions, live with their addictions, live with their aggressive behaviors, whatever it is. I lucked out. Unfortunately for her, she married me, and on my side, it's the bad side. You know, I feel bad for her, right? Because we're a bunch of peasants, really. But her family were amazing, and it just helps. It's so attractive. She comes from such an attractive family. We talk about attraction as, oh, eyes and nose and ears. No, the attraction is the family, the tribe, the country. And I loved Ethiopia. I was like, when I retire, let's go to Ethiopia. I'll be happy to do that. Because if they're, you know, from a country that you don't like their country, guess what? They're going to want to visit that place every summer to visit grandma or nana, or whatever they call them. So that's going to become part of your life. So if you don't like that country, that's what your life is going to be like, you know. So you better not marry someone or fall in love with someone that you don't like their background, because you're marrying that background. So that's what I'd say. Be very careful and protect your heart before you fall in love with someone who's going to provide you with a really gritty life with a lot of friction, and it will come. So.
Amen. I agree. That's very, like, all of that has been really helpful and wise, and things we need to think through. Val and I, she's Canadian, I'm Canadian. She's 3 generations Canadian, I'm 2 generations Canadian. So her parents farmed in Alberta. My parents farmed in Alberta. We met in Edmonton. So there's a color difference, but the culture difference isn't there. And so we've watched couples with culture difference, and you have to face the things that you've mentioned exactly. And they are real. But color difference has its own elements to it. People make assumptions. 50 years ago, it was a little different world than we're in today. And so there are people who might look at you and wonder why you would marry somebody from a different culture, a different race. And I always said we should marry from the same race, the human race.
Amen.
But anyway, just as a quick note, my parents were totally cool with it, and her parents were very good with it. We met and knew each other's parents, and they were with it. But there will be times when people don't understand it, maybe make funny comments. What we've learned is very, very, very few people have any problem with it. They may have curiosity with it. And sometimes you can misunderstand curiosity for a negative approach to it and then get offended or upset. And we have had, I would say, 0 issues with anybody bothering, either in Ethiopia or here. And we've lived in Zambia, Ethiopia, and Canada. And you can overcome it. But I know the culture issues are a little different, and so listen to their advice on that one.
Yeah. Okay, Christine, I'm going to ask you a question about singleness, which is, what is the biggest myth in our culture about singleness, or in the Christian culture, or just in general?
So I got the questions in prep, so I was thinking about this because there's quite a few. I know for a lot of us ladies, there was this myth that there weren't any single Christian men left, especially after like in a post-COVID era. I know a lot of us at North Point, we were like, we don't know any Christian men. Like, are there any Christian men here? Like, we think they exist, but where are they? They do exist. There's lots of wonderful, kind and funny Christian men out there. So what we did to counteract that was we just started to build community. And this isn't biblical, but like, if you build it, they will come. And so within our friend group, our ratios went from like 90-10, like 9 women to 1 guy, to now I'd say they're about 60-40. What do you guys think? Yeah, so that's been hugely helpful. Another myth that I think personally I've struggled with, and probably lots of other singles too, is your worth tied to your marital status. So there have been seasons where I felt less worthy or less influential or even like a failure as a woman, right? You know, or a man, right? And so that was difficult. And if I'm not careful, those thoughts can come back pretty quickly. But things that I do to counteract that is just make sure I remember who my value comes from, where my identity comes from. And I have to do that on a daily basis. Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so we had another question about, you want to ask it?
Oh my God, guys, there's so many good questions in here. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to like read them all. I'm like, how much time do we even have? Okay, this next question, I low-key want to make a comment on, but for the sake of the panel, I will hold it. Is that allowed? So this question is, how do you deal with submitting to your husband in marriage? That's how they wrote it.
Or what is submitting to your husband in marriage? There might be difference of opinions, but let's get into it.
I just want to add quickly, it's not dealing with it, it's actually a blessing, but continue. For the sake of the panel, I will hold my answer until you have spoken.
Well, I think often women have a totally distorted idea of what submission is. It seems to be put across as though you are less because you're submitting, but it's not about your value. It's about order. It's about God set things up to work. And so God says that the man is the head of the wife. But it doesn't stop with the man. Christ is the head of man, and God is the head of Christ. And so I say to the women, like, you don't have to worry about submitting because there's somebody above your husband. So, like, if he needs a kick in the pants, he's going to get it. So you do what you're supposed to do, and your life will be good. You have to just trust God. It's a matter of trusting. It's a matter of understanding that it's for your good. And I just want to give a little example. Like when we moved to Ethiopia, and all of those of you who are Ethiopian, you'll know what I'm talking about. But there are these men in Ethiopia who think that a woman should not be listened to under any circumstances, basically. Some old man, you know. Some old village men feel that way. Like they don't want to listen to a woman at all. And so we had rented a house, and the guard was an old man who was there. And so Brian went away to teach, and he was gone for like 3 weeks. And I had to deal with this man. He wouldn't listen to anything I said, nothing. Like, it didn't matter what I said. I would go and say to somebody, how do I say this in Amharic? Because I didn't know how to say it. And he wouldn't listen, even if I said anything to him. So when Brian came back, I said, this guy won't listen to me. I told him he was fired because I was so annoyed with him. And so Brian went and said to the man, if she fires you, you're fired. Well, he worked for us for like 15 years, and I never had another problem. So when we submit to our husband, we're under his authority. We have the authority of him if we are submitting. If we don't, then we're on our own. So it's for our good if we submit.
I have one quick question. One quick thing is, it's the same for the husband submitting to Christ. And if we submit to Christ, we have the authority of Christ. If we're out of alignment with Christ, then we're on our own. And the same, so if we understood submission, we don't have time to get into it now the way we really should, but if we understood true biblical spiritual submission, it brings us into alignment with the Father, the Son, me, my wife, all in alignment, in unity, in purpose. It's a beautiful thing. It's abused on both sides. It's misunderstood by men who think you do what I tell you and that'll be the end of it, which is false. It's not what submission is. But the point is this, if we understood it biblically, and maybe someday you will have a chance to really look into it, you would love it, both men and women.
And just one last thing. If you as a husband are telling your wife to submit and she does, she's not submitting, because submission by definition means she does it on her own. By her own will. Like it's not something she's forced to do.
That's good.
I think one other thing our culture forgets, that there's so much beauty in like the marriage unity, and like God has created a man to be different with intent from the woman, and we both have like different skill sets, different things that we accomplish in the house, and a lot of times we think that we shouldn't have that, that the woman should be able to do the same as what the man does. And it's not a matter of like, I'm not strong enough to do it. It's like God has given me gifts. And to stay within those, there's so much beauty. And I found in our marriage, when I'm doing stuff that I know God's called me to do, even in this season of raising babies, and it looks very different from even when we first got married, that there's so much beauty in it, and it's so great. And when I have a problem, then like Val said, you just go above. You say, okay, God, I'm going to submit to my husband, but he needs to work on this. So you need to work on him. I can't be saying, if I say something to him and get after him for something or whatever, it's not going to change. He might change his actions, but his heart's not going to change, but God can change his heart. So when we submit to our husbands and submit like all the issues that we might have or any whatever to God, then God's going to work it out, and it the line works good.
Can I just add one thing too? And this is why I think it's important to be part of a local church. I know a lot of us are single right now, but it's also, I think one thing about submission too is when you're part of a local church, and let's say there's also leadership. There are people above your marriage trusted in the local church that should hold both of you accountable, right? So sometimes if you and your spouse are having issues or something like that, even though, yes, spiritually Christ is above all of us, but there is another person there too, which is leadership, church leadership. And a lot of church marriages sometimes that are disengaged from the local church don't get elders or leaders involved when there's serious issues. And I think that's the other thing you have to think about when you're married is like pick a good church that where the pastors or leadership is there isn't biased or favor one or the other, but that can mitigate important issues. I'm not saying that will ever come up where you need to do that, but that's something to think about as well, you know. Yeah.
Just hello? Okay. And I'll just add quickly as well. This is an area that I'm working on, I'll be honest. So pray for me. But I do think that, Val, I loved what you said, that it's not something that should be demanded. It's something that you do freely. But, you know, the Bible says, yeah, wives, submit to your wives. But what it says to the husbands is, love your wife like Christ loved the church. So that commandment is actually a lot harder to follow through than to submit. To love your spouse to the point of dying for them, that sacrificial love, really, I think the harder job is on the man. And so, you know, when we think about it, it's often misconstrued as if we got kind of the short end of the stick. But I think God, in his wisdom, has designed it this way. And I was going to add one more thing. But yeah, I just wanted the wives, I just think, oh yeah, so this is what I was going to say. So that's why I think it's important to choose a Christ-centered man, to choose a man that follows after God's heart, so that you're not taken advantage of or anything like that. And what you'll realize once you're in a partnership with a Christ-led man is it is really a partnership, because they need help too. They'll ask your opinion. If they're a good man and they notice that you have a strength in an area that they don't, you know, you might even lead that area of the marriage. So I just don't want there to be a fear that being a submissive Christian wife means you go into a marriage and you do everything the husband says. I think choosing wisely is important, and once you're in that partnership, it will be fruitful in a way that I think it will benefit you, your family, and society at large.
If I can add again, that's brilliant and absolutely true. One just quick comment that a friend of mine, a really good brother in Ethiopia, said in teaching was, if you as a young woman find a man who loves Jesus truly, then he will have the strength to love you the way Jesus loves his church. And as a young man, if you find a young lady who loves Jesus and is willing to submit to Jesus, she will also be willing to submit to you. So that choice is absolutely critical. Who you marry changes or affects everything else you do in life. So make that choice very, very wisely.
Sammy, can I ask you, there's a verse in the Bible where it says, women obey your husbands, right?
What? Say that again?
Wives are to obey their husbands.
Yes.
Isn't the next verse, husbands obey your wives?
It starts out with submit to one another.
Yes.
And then wives submit to your husbands. So you're absolutely right.
Right.
Submitting to one another is the first thing it says.
Yeah, so there you go. You know, it's not a dictatorship. And I don't think if you want to marry someone that you call your best friend, because I think you should just marry your best friend, you're not going to have that if you're a dictator. It's not going to be fun for the other person, and it will come out, and then it just won't really be a marriage, which is the whole point. It's supposed to be this exciting relationship. Who gets excited being married to, like, you know, Adolf Hitler, really? Because it's not going to be fun, right? I mean, unless you're Eva. But so I would say, I think the question came from a girl, so a sister, so I just want to respond to the sisters on this one. If you're looking and questioning, is this guy Mr. Right? Will he last the long run, or is he going to run off at some point, you know, on some horse? I would say, is this guy submitting to anyone himself? Like, who's his pastor? Does he submit to that pastor? And because when Sine and I come to a difference, we're like, okay, we've come to a difference. Sine can be confident, I hope, right? That she'll say, right, you are so wrong in your thinking, let's take it to the pastor. And I would be doing a great disservice if I said, no, I'm right, and that's it. No, I'll go, okay, I think I'm right, let's take it to the pastor. Because if you got Jesus as the referee in your marriage, then you got the best chance to survive it. But if you have, like, his mother as the referee, you're stuffed. Ain't gonna work out. Now you're fighting two people. So you have to, that guy has to not be a mummy's boy. He has to be a daddy's boy. So if he's fearful of God, and God, through Jesus Christ, is the referee, and he is under. I mean, Jesus had to go under John the Baptist to start his ministry. That's how important that is. Jesus had to go under John the Baptist to start his ministry. He couldn't do it until then.
Yeah.
So even God had to have a minister above him. So if this guy's ministerless, if he hasn't got a head, then that's it. You're marrying a tail. And it's going to work out that way.
Yeah, I think what you guys said was so beautiful. I'm like, oh, like you guys said pretty much everything that I would say, but I want to add this one thing. I think like as a woman, when you see this passage be abused, it can really cause you to really struggle with figuring out what this actually looks like in what God had intended it for. And I know for myself, like I had witnessed some like spiritual abuse in my childhood, and that really messed up my thinking about what biblical submission looked like. And so when I first started dating, I actually really struggled with this to the point where I was like really angry. And I couldn't, like I was like mad when someone would say, you have to submit to your husband. I'd like freak out at them, because I was like, wow, what do you mean, because I had seen it be abused. But as I started learning about what it actually looks like, the more that my heart actually became free. And I think as I learned to trust Sammy and trust in him that he has my best interest in mind, there's blessing to follow when I follow his leadership. And so I want to encourage to any girl who's struggling with this passage to really dive deeper into what it actually means biblically for both a man and a woman. And let it free your heart to know that when you do trust a man's leadership, who's a good man, who would literally die for you as Christ died for the church, you're in safe hands and you're going to be taken care of, and you're not going to be abused. You're not going to be treated poorly. He's going to listen to you. He's going to see you as his equal. He's going to speak with you and talk with you about things. And then you can trust in what his final decision is. So, yeah.
Okay, guys, so we have to come to a close soon. So I'm going to ask maybe one last question that I feel like is important. And try, you guys have been doing an amazing job. So what I'm going to ask is, what are the 3 blessings of marriage or singleness? And what are the 3 warnings you would warn anyone before stepping into it? So like, when Moses was out in the mountain, here are the blessings. And here is warnings. If you don't take these things seriously, there's a curse going to come. What would you say those things are for them as they hear you out?
That's a big question.
Well, we can start, but the blessing, well, there's so many blessings in it, I have to say that the blessing of friendship, like lifelong friendship, the blessing of sharing all the experiences of life, the good, the bad, children raising, children sick, all the issues that come up in life. You have someone who is an absolute companion, and the security of that, the blessing of that. And then the love relationship that just gets stronger and stronger if it's healthy and if it's under the hand of God. It's just a rich treasure every day to my life. It literally is and has been for 50 years. And that doesn't mean we didn't have some fights or struggles and whatever. We had to work through every issue that came along, but you work through them. The companionship of every aspect of life, spiritual, emotional friendship, physical love and connection, rich. The warnings would be basically marry somebody who knows Jesus well, if you do. If you don't know Jesus well, then don't spoil their life. But equal in your faith in walk with God. And don't even date, court, whatever you call it nowadays, someone who isn't in that category. Because who you date, you might end up marrying, and you might be regretting it deeply. So absolutely on faith, equal in faith, equal in your commitment to Christ, equal in your spiritual walk. So you share that together for life. And like he said, not someone who's going to run away after a little while. So be careful, be prayerful. That would be mine.
So I would say you get to learn how to be content and complete in Jesus alone before you meet anyone else. You have the opportunity to learn things about yourself and listen to what God has planned for you. And if you allow Him to speak to you and if you obediently listen, then God might be able to give you some sort of revelation that you wouldn't have had if you rushed into something. And then warnings, I would say don't wait. Don't wait for a spouse for anything. If you are lucky and God's plans for you is to meet a spouse at a young age, don't wait on that. But if you're just patiently waiting on the Lord's timing, just pursue ministry, just serve, right? Like that's what Paul says in 1 Corinthians 7, like it's better to be single so that you can just serve the Lord. So serve the Lord, because at the end of the day, whether He brings you a spouse or He doesn't bring you a spouse and you meet Him in heaven, at least you can say like, God, I pursued you with everything that I had, whether you gave me the desires of my heart or and I just feel like God, like, obviously that's a desire on my heart, but God has just fulfilled me in so many other ways and so many other opportunities that I hadn't planned out. And if I was in a different season of my life, probably wouldn't have happened. Plug for Hybrid Institute.
Yes.
Go to Bible school.
That's good. All right. I actually have the same thing as a blessing and a warning, but I'm speaking to two different people. The first one is those that are hesitant or are trying to wait. Those that want to live out their 20s, etc. There are certain aspects of the human experience you will literally only ever understand as a husband, father, wife, and as a father. Sorry, as a husband and a wife, or as a father or mother. And that's beautiful. Like literally, if you're talking about you want to experience the breadth of what it means to be human, God created us. I think part of having kids and being a parent and being married, that's just something you can't describe, you can't explain to somebody else. It's just a beautiful thing. Flip over the coin. If you're not fulfilled right now and you think marriage is going to fulfill you, it's not. If you think kids are going to fulfill you once you're married, it's not. There's a danger in always thinking that I need to be out of this season. And I'm in this season right now, and I'm like, man, being single is nice, and not to say I wish I was single, but it's like, I definitely wish that I definitely wish I took advantage of my singleness, right? Like I definitely wish when I was single, I was just every event I went to, every like conference, like where's my, could my wife be here? Could my spouse be here? And it's to the point where it's driving me nuts, right? And then I got married, and then it's like, well, okay, it's like you always think if you're not fulfilled, you have this weird thing in the back of your head that the next step is going to fulfill you. And I'm here to tell you, I've been through a few steps. It doesn't. You'll be more disappointed. I think that's why rich people crash, because it's like, once I make $1 million, I'll be fulfilled. And now they get up there and they realize they're not fulfilled, and that despair just gets deeper because now they're up here with $1 million, but they realize it hasn't fulfilled them. And I think it's the same with marriage. Like you can idolize marriage and kids and thinking, once I've done that, oh man, then I'll be happy. It's like that is so not true. You got to be content in Jesus and in who you are. And so both sides of the coin, marriage and kids, most beautiful part of the human experience, and if you're on the fence, like it's awesome, and do it. On the other side, it's not going to solve all your hopes and dreams. You still have to like do the hard work of following Jesus and being a good person, and etc. Do you have anything to add?
I think too what Brian said was like you have to be equally yoked. That's so important, and that will create a beautiful marriage and a beautiful lasting marriage. And then like Mark said, like it's like such a unique experience being married, because you are, as soon as we got married, I remember being like, okay, this is what Jesus was talking about in his love for the church. And it's just so beautiful to see how God has created, I don't know, anyways, God has created the church, and Christ is the bride, and I was the bride, and Mark would lay down his life for me. And like seeing that play out in our first little bit of marriage was so beautiful and so hard. But like wow, what a special moment to be able to experience this, because you don't get this kind of relationship in any other sphere of life. So it is super beautiful. It's amazing. Highly recommend. But go with Jesus.
3 and 3, I think, is a bit hard for me right now. Maybe 1 or 2 points on each. I'll start with the bad stuff. It's not nice to say a warning, you know, but when God punished Adam and Eve, he punished them individually. He didn't say you're both gonna, no. There was a specific thing for him and a specific thing for her, and you're both out the garden because they were one. So your oneness with God doesn't go away. So you become one in flesh, but your individual relationship stays there. So you still are single when you're married to a level. So I didn't realize this when I got married. I thought when I get married, we're going to deal with all the problems that I have together, right? But she's not a psychotherapist. It's not fair. It was too much pressure for your partner. So when you get married, don't put that pressure. When you meet someone, don't expect them, when I meet them, they're going to fix this and do that for me. Dr. Miles Monroe said the biggest problem with marriage is one word: expectation. We have these massive expectations on each other, and that's what wrecks marriage. You ask any divorced couple, why did you get divorced? I thought they were going to do this. I thought they were going to do that. I thought, expectation. So expectation singularly wrecks marriage. So if you are in a good place with the Lord, great. If you're not, work on yourself individually. Your wife or your husband can help you, but putting all the pressure on them to like drag you out the miry clay, that's not the job. The job was to help with some work that you were doing. It's not to all your hang-ups, you know. The blessing, I would say, for the guys is that, I look like a missing member from a group called ISIS, I know that. So I never got trust, you know, and, you know, all these young studs here, you know, you're going to walk around and people are going to be like, he looks a bit dodgy, he looks a bit weird. But once you get married, you know, hide the kids, who is that guy? You know, that's how it's going to be. But once you get married, you're a community member. And people are like, oh, that's Emil's husband. And they go, oh, you're married to Emil. I was like, yeah, I'm safe, you know. I don't eat children or anything. So it's like a really great thing that you feel, hey, I'm respected as a community member. So that's like another side to marriage that no one told me about. And everywhere I went, the elders were like, oh, this is a married man. And they go, oh, hello. And it's a different handshake. You're like, hello, welcome to the club, you know, and have a donut, as they say. And so, but when you're single, there is this hang-up that you have, and you feel a little bit like you're a wet rag, and like, where do I put this to dry? That's how I felt when I was single. I felt like I was a dangerous person all the time as a man. Because you enter and you're just like looking for a wife, like, you know. And if I had a daughter and some like gorilla like me came in, I'd be like, hey, who's this guy? You know, so, but once someone's married, there's this acceptance and a friendliness, and the world becomes great. And then you become a father and it doubles up again. So all these things are part of the community, and the community will help your marriage. The community is for your marriage. You know, they're going to turn up for your wedding, not just because you're serving some bad food on a plate, but because they actually want to see our community grow. So come on, guys, you grow the community. Stop being single, get off Tinder. Let's come on. I need you guys with me. We're trying to grow our team. So that's the blessing, I would say. It's great. It's really great.
Well, I'll let you speak last because I think you have a lot of wisdom. But not to say what's already been said, but I think one advantage is definitely financial. You get a roommate for life. There's a lot of accountability. You get tax breaks when you have kids. No, there's a lot of research done that shows that I think within marriage there is a lot of financial success that comes with it. Not that that's why we do it, but I'm just saying it's a byproduct because you do keep tabs on each other. You bring your strengths together and it helps. And, you know, that blessing is to flow out of you and bless others. It's not just for yourself. Another advantage is obviously children. If God blesses you with that, then that's definitely a plus. Some disadvantages that sometimes can come with marriage and having kids, and this is maybe specific to me, but I think my spirituality did suffer because I was so busy, you know, either arguing with Stell or raising children. I'm working full time. You know, there's the in-laws that are visiting, and then my family Sunday dinner. So it can be, you know, you said how when you're single, you can really focus and come for overnight prayers and fast to our heart's content. And sometimes, as in that early stage especially, your spirituality can suffer. So it's a warning and just something to keep in mind and try to be proactive about. And I think another disadvantage is I used to think I was a great person before I got married. And I realized once I got married, oh, I'm not that forgiving. I'm not that gracious. And so it brings out things about yourself that you didn't know that can only be faced within the context of such a close relationship like marriage. So be ready for that too.
Yeah, that last point was one that I was thinking of. Like, it really helps us grow, marriage does. So you can think of it as an advantage or a disadvantage, but it makes you face yourself. And if marriage doesn't do it, children certainly will. Because you'll see yourself and you think, would you quit that? And you think, oh, that's me, they're copying me. So, yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, but it's also a challenging thing in that it really makes you grow.
Okay. Yeah, I would just add this one thing. I think single or married, I think learn to die now, you know? Jesus says that the seed must be planted in the ground before it raises. One of the things marriage will teach you is you're more sinful than you thought you were, and you have to die constantly. And that's the flip side of that is when you die, there's more life. There's way more life. There's so much more joy, more peace, more satisfaction. I heard this one guy say marriage is like, it can make, like, he said it like this. He said, when you're single, it's like your biggest happiness is like a +10, and your biggest, when you're most depressed, might be a -10. But in marriage, it's like when everything's working right, when both of you are dying and serving one another, it's like a +20. When you're both fighting and hating each other and breaking doors, it's like a -20. It's like the most depressing. It's horrible. And then they said when you have kids, it's like +50 on the other side. But it's like a -50. It's the worst emotional pain experience. So it's like, but the secret is not, waiting for each stage of life. The secret is learn to die now. Learn to die to your selfish desires and your lusts and your greed and whatever. And then when you're in marriage, you're at least a bit more primed, even though there'll be more of you that needs to die, so that you can have so much blessing in your marriage. Right? And I think if you don't learn that now, you will be forced to learn that because they won't tolerate it when you're in a marriage. So that's what I would just say. I think that's the blessing of marriage. It will force you to die, but you'll experience more life. Any other comments before maybe we... Yeah.
One thing I've been sitting here thinking is when we were young, there was young people in the church, and that's where we interacted and got to know each other as friends and in fellowship without any pressure. And you're so blessed to have this great group of young people, young ladies, young men. And like you said, man, it's all there.
Okay, guys. Well, I'm just going to maybe end with that. But can we give them all a round of applause to thank them? I just want to thank you guys. Beautiful, beautiful. We are just so honored and privileged to have you guys to share your wisdom and your experience with us. Thank you, guys. So, guys, service is done. If you have any additional questions or maybe just follow-ups, I think you guys are okay to stay back just a few minutes or so. Go up to them, ask them maybe some questions we weren't able to ask them. But, service is done. Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of your evening. Okay. Amen.
Hi friends, thank you for joining us for today's sermon. We hope it uplifted and inspired you. Our vision is to see the unreached become healthy disciples of Jesus Christ to make a difference in the world. If you feel moved to support our mission, you can text GIVE to 855-280-0601. Again, that's 855-280-0601. Or visit our website for more details. Join us every Sunday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, and make sure to like, subscribe, and explore past sermons. Now, step out and live a healthy life.